Okay, it is 5 o'clock. I'd like to welcome everybody to our October 19th, 2023 West Fargo Public Library Board of Directors meeting. Welcome to everyone. Really briefly, we'll do attendance. Tony.
Here.
Larry.
Here.
And we are missing Alana and Mandy. I do know that there was, I think, a potential solution for Commissioner George for attendance. So hopefully we can work on that as well in terms of getting a representative from the chamber. So next, we'd like to approve the order of the agenda.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next, we have approval of the consent agenda, which includes the approval of minutes from September and approval of September financials.
Oh,
thank you. Fancy.
I'll move to
Oh, go ahead, Larry.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, I'll second that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Consent agenda passes. Next, we will move to our, we don't have any old business, so we'll move to new business. And it is an action item. It's update to space need assessment funding request. And I think we had started this conversation last time, so I think we have some further information.
I will hop in here. Our previous space needs assessment was completed in 2019 with Library Planning Associates. And then we had a pandemic. And also the city of West Fargo grew far beyond what was anticipated at that time. So when the needs assessment was completed, they were looking at a projection of 41,000 for a population 20 years out. We're almost at 41,000 right now today, and it's only been a few years, 4 years. So with the work that the city is doing in identifying their current and future facility needs, I would like to update that previous needs assessment. And we would be able to do that virtually with the consultant to save time and expense on travel costs. So we would have virtual meetings with the consultant. We would also produce a just kind of a video walkthrough of the library facility to refresh his memory on what our facility looks like, how it's being used, and what the different spaces are. When I initially produced this memo, we were looking at a cost of around $8,000. I did email all of our board members that memorandum of understanding that the consultant had sent. And then there was an updated revision for the tasks that came out a little later. I emailed that to you as well. So we kind of have a choice to make should you decide to move forward with updating the space needs assessment. We could go forth with the kind of $8,000 project, or we could do a little bit more long range planning to include perhaps what a multi-site system could look like for us. And that would be kind of that second revision, which was over $9,000. Should I pull up that memo?
Yeah, so would it be, it would just be 9,000 total? It wouldn't be the 8,000 plus the 9,000?
That's my understanding. Here's the revision that was sent. So this is indicating kind of a breakdown of the tasks that would be included in that work and how the cost layout. And so it would be 9,825. That's the estimate for that work. And this was an inclusive of kind of two tracks. So a 2040 track, probably mostly just looking at one main branch. And then to 2050, looking at moving to the site system.
Thank you. That answers one of my questions. Are there other questions from the board? I'll ask a question. Do we have funding in our fund source to allocate towards this? Do we have a line item for this?
There is a consulting line, and that is currently budgeted at $0.
Okay.
My guess is that when the board has looked in the past at, do we need to update our strategic plan? You've just figured those costs in with the budget at that time, instead of just annually always having an allocation there. This year, since we're going to be really underspent in staff salaries in particular, I think there's plenty of wiggle room if you wanted to just pull some money out of those buckets.
I have a question about your comments, and I guess they're outlined in task 8 there. Were you saying that in effect, we'd be looking at the single site to 2040 and then adding a site somewhere in there to get us to 2050? Or something that clean?
In my discussions with the consultant, I asked, you know, at what's kind of that magic population range when libraries really start to move from a main branch single site to a multi-site format. And he said that the magic number around the nation is between 50,000 and 60,000 for a population. We're a little bit different though, because of our geography. We're so long and so skinny that what we find is the needs of folks living way on the north end is different than the needs of the folks living on the south end, as far as what questions they're asking, what resources they're looking for, what items they're checking out. And that's where, from previous work, community members have identified that they would like to be able to get to their library in 5 to 10 minutes. Well, that doesn't work with our current arrangement. So the consultant would tell us that we should be looking at a multi-site system much sooner than before we hit that 50 to 60,000 range for population.
That was my impression, really, kind of even before seeing this, and why I asked. 2040 seems a bit late at this point, given the rate of acceleration.
Yeah, but this will also just give us the framework for what that could look like. So we could always move up those target dates.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Mary, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
All right.
I have one more question to insert.
Oh, okay.
One of the things that I talked about with the consultant is, would the board want to have a library board member as a kind of liaison for some of those discussions? And he included that in this document. If you wanted to be hands-off and just let your library service managers go forth with the process, that's totally fine. But if you would like a little bit more involvement as a board, choosing somebody to liaise with that group would be a good course of action.
Leanne, what is your
Yes.
schedule? What's your schedule like? Would you be able to be a liaison?
If I would be interested in being that liaison if my schedule allowed it.
Okay.
You know, it's a busy, I mean,
Right.
it's busy, but if there's other members that are also interested and have a more open schedule, but I would love to be part of it, if it's doable.
Also interested.
Okay, and you have, I think, a more open schedule than I do.
Oh, Lord, yes.
Yes. So I would gladly hand that off to you, Larry.
Okay.
I would love to have a more board member part of it, and I think that sounds like a good idea. So we are looking, any other questions or comments? I would make a motion to approve funding to update the space needs assessment, but at that 9,800 number. Or whatever that is, to include the future thinking part of it.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Next, we have library marketing and communication specialist job description. There's also an action item.
Well, to get things rolling, I'll move to approve that job description.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor say
Wait,
aye.
wait. How did this come about? What's up? What's new?
Okay, thank you.
So this is something that's been in the process for a long time. And perhaps Ellen, who was a part of it much longer, would like to just give us a brief description on how this came to be. I will say that HR has been in the process of updating all of the job descriptions across the city of West Fargo. So this is kind of falling under that umbrella a little bit and wanting to make sure that we're differentiating our marketing and communication specialist position from the city positions. So Ellen, did you have any further comments?
What I can say about it is it was early 2020 when this position was added. And around that same time, there were a lot of changes to the city's communication department. And part of that change was to remove pretty much any work on behalf of the library from their job descriptions and procedures. And then those things were added to this role's workload, but not reflected anywhere on paper. So I've been working with the various directors that we've had over the past few years to have that information reflected, basically.
Other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, same sign. That job description passes. Next up, we have media relations policy. And listed in our packet, there is the current and then the proposed. So Jenna, do you want to talk through the major changes or adjustments?
Sure. So basically the adjustments are made to reflect the changes you just voted on with that job description. And to define how the library marketing collaborates with the city of West Fargo communication. So as you can see, it got a lot longer than the previous one. Ellen, is this something that you wanted to chime in about as well?
That is pretty much it, but I can answer any questions if there's any. This is also something that's been in the works for quite some time, so.
Do we have any questions for Jenna or Ellen?
Is the City of West Fargo media guide available online?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the media relations policy as it's updated.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions again? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Media relations policy passes. Next up, we have a public posting and displays policy. It is also an action item. And it looks like last revisions were in 2017.
Ellen, you want to just jump in right away and talk about some of the changes between the previous one and this one?
Sure. Yeah. So like she just said, the it hadn't been revised since 2017. We updated it to follow the same format as the others that we've updated recently. Basically, this is just giving the deciding staff some better backing and for if they had to deny an item. So we have a lot of people who want to bring all of their posters and great stuff and have it displayed in the library. We have limited space for that and would like to prioritize West Fargo organizations or things that are for our populace to start. The other thing that is included in here that wasn't is literature or brochures or table tents, things like that. And so, yeah, it's just expanding on that a little bit.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for Ellen?
I am wondering about I'm worried about the dark side. I wonder if any indication needs to be made about criteria for approval or denial. Do we need to worry about that?
This did go through the city attorney,
Okay.
and the revisions were made. This is a lot more. The last one that we had was very vague, so this does outline that a little bit more.
Okay.
We also are not actively really denying people right now. There is, I mean, that we have a lot of people who bring things in, but we usually find space for it. If you, yeah,
And
hopefully
is
we
there,
get some more.
I don't see an indication of final responsibility. Who is finally responsible for approval or denial? Is that the director? Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
It would be myself, the director, or if the director is not present, it would be the service manager on duty, which would be on the weekends.
Okay. Well, I can't see that it would be necessary to post something immediately, to have an immediate decision.
Emergent.
Okay.
Thanks, Larry. Any other questions?
No.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the public posting and displays policy.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any last comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Posting and displays policy passes. Next is approval of holiday leave policy.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second that.
And
Are there questions?
Maybe I'll add a little bit of commentary on this one. This is based off of our conversation at the last library board meeting. What we've done with the language in this policy is to ensure that the holiday time that staff are promised is theirs. So if they are not scheduled on a holiday, they would be able to use that holiday time later, as that's a benefit that we have promised them. And I don't know that we would ever have a time where somebody would be scheduled to work an official holiday, but maybe if the building was flooding or something, who knows, then they would be paid time and a half. So just outlining that on the off chance that that should happen at some point.
Thank you for that. Any questions? We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Holiday leave policy passes. Next, we have public comment policy.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second that. So I think and I'm trying to read through it quick again, Jenna. Do we, So will we put like just a standing agenda item for public comment within our agenda items?
Yeah.
Perfect. We have a motion and a second. Are there any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign? Public comment policy passes. Next, we have December 4th closure for staff training and maintenance projects. So we are looking for approval of closure on December 4th for staff training and then maintenance as well.
Monday.
And listed in the notice are the projects to be included.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right, we are up to Q3 programming and reach report.
Okay. Good evening once again, board members. I'm Ellen Rosso, Communications Specialist for the library. I am back to give another update on programming at the library and the ways that we're reaching our patrons and the general public with our services and information. The information that we're covering today is largely about the third quarter of the year, which is July, August, and September. So to start with door count, we tracked over 16,000 entrances and exits at the library in late summer and early fall. And that brings our grand total for the year to 45,657. Because our door count is pinged each time a person comes or goes, I divided that by 2 to show the estimated visits to the library so far this year, which is about 23,000 people. As you can see by the chart there, our door count has increased over the last few years. We've seen some declines month to month or quarter to quarter, but over the last few years, we are increasing. And knowing that, plus seeing our consistent growth of pretty much everything, our checkouts and service use and things like that, it's very clear that the library is a valued service to the community. For library card signups, we had 2,142 new cardholders so far this year. That's better than 2019, 2020, or 2021. And the only reason we haven't surpassed 2022 is because we haven't gotten that dump of the West Fargo Public Schools student cards yet, which we're anticipating to get in October. So what you're seeing reflected here is just the in-person signups or online signups. Next is program participation. Last quarter, we saw 4,601 people at our events and programs at the library and out in the community. And that includes participation in our reading challenges as well. That brings us to over 15,000 people participating in our programs and events so far this year, which also is an increase over the past few years and beats pre-pandemic numbers, which is a pretty big deal. Our 2019 summer reading program was really knocked it out of the park. We had really big numbers that year. And so the fact that we are beating that is really showcases how much people are using the library. Some of our top programs over the last quarter, we had a performance of Winnie the Pooh, which was in partnership with West Fargo Events Stage West. We had over 13,000 recorded attendance at our story times, which you've heard about time and time again. Our end of summer celebration, we had a couple hundred people come out to that at the POW Plaza. And then we've also increased attendance at our teen events over the past few months as well. We continue to have a great outreach program as well. We've seen a slight decline over the last year, but we did do less route stops. You know, we've had some staffing challenges and things like that. Still solid numbers all around. And in a similar vein, we also continue to reach out to the general public with our information and services. We are consistently expanding our social media audience, as well as our website and newsletter subscriptions, things like that. We've also nearly doubled our media mentions, our news mentions and things like that. We've been working really closely with local news media to promote the value of the library as well. Lastly, and maybe most importantly for this presentation, while we do great work beyond the library, it's very important to address what is happening in our physical space. Last quarter, we had about 2,000 people attend events in the physical library building, which brings the total for in-library program attendance to 6,427 for this year. And I've broken down the data by age here into the two pie charts. The one on the left is just Q3, and you can see that youth is an astronomical number, 65%. And then we have a lot of attendance at general audience and some adults. If you look at the pie chart on the right, which is the full year, you see it's really been a trend all year. We see youth is more than half of our program participation. With that said, like I said earlier, we had about 6,500 program attendees visit the library so far this year, which is a significant number, I'm sorry. But earlier, I explained that we estimate about 23,000 visits to the library in total. And of that, only 6,500 can be attributed to attending a program or event. So that means almost 75% of the people who visit the library are doing something else. And we put a lot of time and energy into talking about how amazing our programs and events are, but almost 75% of people are doing something else, whether that's using the computer or a printer or checking out books, meeting new people, encouraging their children to read, or just having a safe place to be without having the expectation of having to pay for something. So our programs and events are really important, but people use the library for so much more. And this really illustrates to me the importance of our primary service point, which we've really been focusing on lately, the desk, and the importance of having a modern and user-friendly and welcoming space with as little barriers as possible for the public. That is all I have this time around. I'm available for questions or comments, as is Jenna.
Thanks, Ellen. Really good data again. So thank you for putting it together and sharing it with us. Other comments or questions?
I want to make sure that this information is passed on to all of the city council people, as well as the paid administrative staff.
Yeah, Ellen and I
idea.
are planning to meet to discuss the best strategies to make sure that this information is getting to those decision makers in a format that they're going to access.
Okay. Thank you. Again, thanks, Ellen, for putting it together. Last on our agenda, we have our director's report.
All right. So in the building, we've spent a lot of time with the library service managers and other staff lately talking about some different ways that we could improve our workflows. And as noted, our programs are so popular and we're limited in our meeting space. So is there a way that we could increase our meeting room space? One popular option that's been talked about is moving the kind of like administrative team. So the director, our communications specialist, and our office coordinator downstairs and out of the room that we are currently in. This would mean a small construction project with putting up a door and one wall in the area where our new materials are, right next to the steps behind the desk. That's kind of an underutilized area. And I think it makes a lot of sense to have the new audiobooks with the other audiobooks, for example, the new large print with the other large print. So instead of having that kind of space where we're just highlighting new materials, really just to put those materials with the rest of those collections, and then having a director's office right there by the desk. So if the public wants to ask a question or interact with the director, we're available. And same for communications, to be on that main floor to see what's happening, what people are talking about, ensuring that our signage and our wayfinding is as it should be, because they're in that space much more regularly. We've also looked at, like, the carpet is quite worn in our facility, and upholstery needs to be cleaned. So that's one of the tasks that we were hoping to do on that December 4th closure date, is have the furniture cleaned. That's something that we need to do during a time that the library is closed. And we also would like to look at having the carpets cleaned as well. With our current lease agreement, the library is responsible for those costs, those maintenance costs. It's not rolled into custodial, to my understanding. So more investigation on that. Our library lease agreement automatically renewed in August during a time when you didn't have a director. So we're kind of in this, it just kind of automatically renews year by year zone. And so now would be a great time to take a look at renegotiating that lease agreement. One of the things we could do when we go into those negotiations is try to request some of this type of work, like carpet or paint, be rolled into that lease. It would increase our rental lease costs, because we would be paying off that work over a longer period of time. I know this has been done in the past with lease agreements in this space. Small construction projects have been paid for over time by just increasing that lease payment. So that's something we can talk about a little bit more down the road. With board consensus, though, I could go ahead and kind of initiate some of those conversations, and then maybe we would want to decide who all would be involved in that. Expenditures through September year to date and our available appropriation are listed here. We are 60% expended for the year. So in a very good place. In my presentation, I wrote that we're currently reviewing applications. We're actually beyond that now. Today, we started some interviews for those full-time positions, and we'll be interviewing through the beginning of next week, and hope to have those filled soon. We had a lot more applicants than we were expecting, and great qualifications. So very exciting. I think it's fantastic that our circulation statistics continue to be so high. We know that our community really is using the library in the most traditional sense, as Ellen noted in her presentation. People are coming to the library to borrow materials, to use the computers, and have their questions answered. Lots of new cards. And in September, we had our highest public usage of meeting rooms to date for the year. So again, that kind of highlights that need for extra meeting room space. Our offsite book drop usage increased in September. We were kind of thinking that maybe with that back to school, folks were utilizing the convenience of returning their books at a book drop at the grocery store, for example, when they're out and about on their normal errands. And we have added two more daycare book buddies delivery sites. So now we're up to 7 locations that we are delivering to for daycares. A few pictures of some recent programming and outreach. And I just have a couple other notes as well. Over the weekend, our Friends of the Library had a book sale, and they raised well over $2,800 with that book sale. There were a few times when they didn't have enough volunteers. So tell your friends that tell your friends that the Friends is a great group to work with. And they do just a tremendous job of fundraising for us for some of our needs. So thank you to all of them for that. The next sale is going to be in April. So tentatively April 13th and 14th. So they will probably start collecting donations for that sale again in March. Unfortunately, also over the weekend, the stall door in our ladies handicapped stall in the restroom broke, and it has not been fixed yet. So we are currently sitting at one non-handicapped stall for the whole library at the moment. This has caused problems, as you might imagine. If anybody is mobility impaired, having to come up to the second floor to use the facilities is already an inconvenience. And then for there to not even be a handicap stall available for use is really problematic. Hopefully that will be fixed soon. The school is planning to start painting the stairwell and elevator area at the library's entrance soon. I've requested that the painter keep in touch with me, just text updates so we know when they're coming and what's happening so we can communicate that with staff and the public. We recently signed a contract for a new mailing machine. We're going to be over a little bit on postage for the year, just with the amount of requests that we've had for sending things out. This new mailing machine is going to save us some money and some staff time in the long run. It was a bit of a pain to set up. Thanks to Alicia for all of her work in dealing with that. Alicia is our amazing office coordinator, and it sounds like it's working now. So we look forward to that. We have a variety of inventory and weeding projects going on. Library service managers are assessing their various areas of the collection they oversee to look at remaining budgets, shelf space, and usage statistics to make some decisions for the next year and year-end budget. Our Little Red Reading Bus is off to Public Works for winter storage. They currently do not have an indoor storage location for us, so it's going to sit outside for the winter. But I hear it will have like some rodent packs and stuff put in there, so it has been winterized for the season. We launched a Teeter Tot story time recently, so that's our third weekly story time, and it's going really well. It's really fun to see all the kids down there. The story time focuses on the toddler age group. So they do a few stories, a lot of songs, a lot of time with imaginative play and socializing and literacy skill building. There's over 20 participants weekly in that story time. And finally, Teentober is happening right now. It's our month-long celebration of teens in the library. We have special events going on each week for teens, and they have been really well attended. They've made spooky terrariums, painted pumpkins, and just today they were making haunted gingerbread houses. There was graham crackers and frosting and some very creative haunted houses being made when I passed by earlier today. And I would happily answer any questions if there's any more questions.
Thanks, Jenna, for all those updates. Any questions or comments?
Nope.
Okay.
You
Tony,
said
anything?
You're muted there, Jenna.
You're muted.
Sorry. That was pretty thorough. Nothing comes to mind given that.
Okay, we have come. Is there anything else? We have come to the end of our agenda.
Then nothing remains except for me to move for adjournment.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you, and we'll see you all next month.
Thanks,
Have a
Jenna,
great
and
night.
thanks, Ellen, very
Bye.
much for the hard work. Appreciate it.
Yes, I appreciate it. Good work all the way around.
Yep.
Thanks,
Bye.
board.
Thank you.